first want to introduce Sekou Odinga, recently released. We're very happy he's here with us. Sekou.
Peace, assalamu alaikum. Free the land. What I wanted to speak about is to kind of give you a little information about what a political prisoner is. There are those in this country in leadership that say there is no political prisoners. But we know that there are many political prisoners in this country. We have a number from our movement, the Black Liberation Movement in this country, who are still locked down and have been locked down for the last 20, 30, 40, 50 years, you know. So one of the things that we want to say is that we define a political prisoner as someone who was imprisoned for his or her actions against the government, or his statements, or in support of someone else who took actions or organized against the government for one reason or another. This could have been something that they did do, or that they were just accused of doing, because everyone that's a political prisoner was not necessarily framed. There were people who actually worked and struggled for the liberation of our people in ways that the government considered criminal. But we, as revolutionaries, recognize that people have a right to struggle by any means against their oppression. Most international laws give them that right. This country has signed most of those international laws that give them that right, but they don't stand for the law when it's against them. So most of our political prisoners, when I say our, I'm talking about political prisoners that come from the Black Liberation Movement, have been down. People like Jalil Muttaqin, who was 19 years old, is now in his 60s, been down for over 40 years. Herman Bell, Sundiata Acoli, Mutulu Shakur, Jamil Alameen. It's a number of them that we have in this country that we consider from our movement. We believe that you cannot support mass imprisonment or be against mass imprisonment if you don't support the release of our political prisoners. Because all the things that people are in prison for that are wrong, our political prisoners fought against. They're there because they oppose the things that we oppose. Bad education, police brutality and murder and terror of our communities, drug addictions and drug selling, bad housing, bad food, bad education, you name it, we've struggled against it. I personally was a political prisoner, as she said. I spent 33 years in different prisons around the country. I did 28 years in the federal system and 5 in the New York system for multiple things. Some of them I didn't do, and some of them I did do, you know. So we want to be clear that our political prisoners need support, not because of what they did or didn't do, but because they struggled against this system of oppression. That's why they need to be released, all right? They come from a movement, the Black Liberation Movement. Most of them come out of the Black Panther Party or the Black Liberation Army that struggled for the liberation of our people. Those of you who remember the Black Panther Party know that they had programs such as free breakfast for children, where they got up in the middle of the morning to cook breakfast for our children. You know, this was criminalized, but now they have adopted it into our schools themselves. So it must have wasn't wrong. You know, free health clinics. You know, today you hear of sickle cell being tested on all black children. That comes from the Black Panther Party. That's those brothers and sisters that's in them jails now. For these are the type of things they were doing. You know, free giveaway of clothes and of food to our elderly and all these type of things. These are the bad guys that they claim are bad guys. These are the brothers and sisters that we need to free because they struggled for us. They supported us. We need to support them.
That's right. So next, I would like to introduce Francisco Torres.
Thank you and greetings to all of you here. I'm formerly incarcerated. I'm still a political prisoner. Lastly, I was one of the last members of the San Francisco 8. I think a lot of you are aware of it. But I just wanted to talk about the issue of political prisoners, and Sekou did pretty good defining what is a political prisoner, and what we consider collectively what a political prisoner is. And I was born in a colony. I was born in Puerto Rico. Came to this country when I was young, and have lived in New York. So I've been accused of certain things. Unlike Sekou, I haven't committed anything. I am a political prisoner. I am a colonial subject. America has what they claim 4 territories: Guam, Samoa, Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, what they call territories. America bought slaves here from the shores of Africa, from Africa, as commodities, as commodity, to be bought and sold. When America made this Constitution, it was to exclude those former slaves. We have a civil war here. Supposedly, rights are restored to the former slaves. Everybody across the board supposedly is a citizen. Comes Reconstruction, come back, they repeal all of that. Now, you're supposed to have work, you're supposed to have the freedom to organize, all that is repealed. Jim Crow laws come in, all that's taken back. You're second-class citizen. Today, that still exists. And I just was sitting in a panel and people are going, we're still not citizens. You're right, still not citizens. When we're sitting here in 2016 talking about our rights, that they're taking the right to vote, that I was incarcerated and that I just got out, and I still don't have a right to vote, I can't have a driver's license, then there's something there, which to me tells me that, wait a minute, you know, we're not citizens and we're still fighting. Therefore, we are being the right to vote because of political reasons. Now, if you're denied the right to vote for political reasons, then what are you? And if you're being held in prison after you committed your sentence, and you finished out your sentence, and they're holding you and they're giving you all these obstacles. Why? Because of your political power, your political potential, which they are taking away from you. Now, if we had the right to vote, all of us, imagine the political impact. Imagine there wouldn't be that, oh man, should I pay taxes or shouldn't I? Because then we're all citizens. We're all citizens here. But the fact is, we're all not citizens. So I want you to kind of work that into your thinking about, oh, I was incarcerated, I'm formerly incarcerated. Well, wait a minute, maybe you're a little bit more than that. Maybe if you could start thinking this more as this is a capitalist system, you know, and how does this impact me and us and our efforts? Because if we don't think, if our understanding of this problem isn't that this is capitalism, then we're just going to become so-called reformers, putting a patch here and the patch gets ripped off and you bleed again, and you know, and we come up with so-called different ideas and so-called new theories to the same problem. And the problem is America. America. So in order to change the structure of incarceration, you have to change the system. If I want to get rid of the debt in Puerto Rico, which is a $73 billion debt, I don't know, because there's no Puerto Rican that I know of that borrowed any of that money. And I don't know who's going to pay it. And trust me, I would like to talk to you peacefully, and I don't want to fight because I don't want to punch in the eye, but don't force me to fight. And if you have weapons, don't come at me with a weapon, because I don't want to defend myself, but I will. I would like to have a peaceful revolution too, but I learned what happened in the Middle East, specifically in Egypt.
Can you tell us also about Punta and what happened?
So I want to tell you, as you think about that and frame all that into your thinking, remember that the repression and the backlash that we get as a result of our activism. So what does the state have for us? Counterintelligence programs. In America, we call it COINTELPRO, which still exists to today. Still exists today. I've read some of the files. It went, you know, I read it from when the Nation of Islam was based in Alabama all the way through the Puerto Rican, you know, independence movement all up until now. And it has new forms up until recently. When we were fighting the cases of the San Francisco 8. We read documents. People were going through our garbage. My garbage. I'm reading the documents. I said, what are you looking for in my garbage? They were still tapping our phones. Monies that we had collected for our defense, all of a sudden we couldn't find them. When we put a tracer on them, and you know, we found out where it was, then they released the funds. And I heard Albert talk about the same thing happening in his defense funds, you know, talking about how COINTELPRO still exists today. So I want you to understand that sometimes you'll be going through your emails and your computer is not working because you're active doing something. COINTELPRO. I'm not trying to make you paranoid. But I am a conspiracy theorist. But I want you to think about that. You know how it impacts us in our lives and how they will thwart you. And you'll be like, I was getting ready to do this. Suddenly I ain't got no money in the bank. What happened? And just little things happen. So, and be careful who you trust and talk to. Be careful on them phones, you know, because these people are still active. Because the bottom line is to neutralize us and to keep us subjugated and to keep us subjugated. And I'm not advocating anything. I want a peaceful revolution. I would love a peaceful revolution. You know, that's what we've been taught. Ten cuidado, oh, be careful. That's what our parents, that's what we want of our children. Be careful, ten cuidado, we can know what you're doing. Yeah, well, we know what we're doing, but we were also taught to respond when we get slapped. And I'm gonna leave it right there, but I just want you to open it up when you think about struggle and movement. Thank you.
Now I'd like to introduce Laura Whitehorn, a member of the anti-imperialist movement and worked in solidarity with all of our national liberation struggles. Yes.
Thank you. Thanks. It's really, I mean, to say it's an honor is an understatement, but I do also want to say that, so I was a political prisoner. When I got out in '99, I had had a sentence of 23 and a half years, and I got out because it was the old law in the Fed, so I got out after 14 and something. And when I got off parole 5 years later, the first thing I did was to go in to visit Herman Bell. And when I walked into the prison, it struck me, and it stays with me, that, yeah, I was a political prisoner. It's one thing to have a sentence that's 23 years or even 50 years or something like that that has a minimum where you have a date where you max out. And it's another thing to have 25 to life. And that's what most of the people that Sekou was talking about have. I want to then jump to Palestine. Hank and I and some other people in this room, some other formerly incarcerated people went on a delegation to Palestine earlier this year. And it struck us over and over again, the similarities. We met with hundreds of, literally 100, I think, former political prisoners. And what was so clear is the connection, the similarity between the Zionist state of Israel and the imperialist state of the United States. Because if you're a white settler colony and you're incarcerating on the street, imprisoning nations of people and robbing them of their rights, you need a really fancy-dancy prison system to repress the masses, both the political people and the masses who are not yet political, but you don't want them to be political. So to build off of the thing about COINTELPRO that Cisco was saying, I think that, and Chokwe Lumumba said this, he said, COINTELPRO in the 60s and 70s destroyed organizations and targeted leaders, killed people, and said, and this was a quote from J. Edgar Hoover, said, we need black children to know if they want to be a revolutionary, they're going to be dead or in prison. And so what comes next? Mass incarceration, so that you don't have another person turning into Sekou Odinga or Hank Jones. You have people who are put in prison and the goal is to destroy them. So we often talk about why we want to fight for support for political prisoners, what it does for the prisoners, for their families. But I want to talk for a second about what it does for us to support them. Someone asked Albert recently, how did you survive 44 years in solitary? How did you not capitulate? How did you not just do the easy thing and say, okay, I renounce my political beliefs, I'm not, I will stomp on the Black Panther Party, all that. And he answered, I won't answer for him, but what's so moving about it is the refusal to capitulate, is the strength of spirit, which exists in every person. And in solidarity with one another, we bring it out of each other. So I want to go back now to Attica, because today's the 9th, right? So we are commemorating right now the rebellion. And remember that one of their demands, to go back to what Sekou was saying about what political prisoners stand for, one of the demands was transport to a non-imperialist country. That got pushed off the list by, during the negotiations pretty fast, but it was right up there. And I also want to go back, I had it on my iPhone, but I'm charging my iPhone, so I can't get to it. The exact wording from the 10-point program of the Black Panther Party was, we want all black, now they said men, but all black people released from prison. Because, and they don't say this, but this was the ideology behind it. This country, with its history of genocide, has no right to impose laws on the people who have been the targets of that genocide. Oh yeah, of course, we need in our communities some way to control damage, hurt between people, definitely, but not imposed by the same imperialist power that destroys nations here and around the world. So I want to talk for a second about Leonard Peltier. Okay, so have people been following, Linda announced it at the beginning, that because of the struggle of the Native Americans and the Allies in North Dakota now at Standing Rock, there has been a pause at least. We have to be careful. Even the New York Times says not everything is resolved or something like that, but it's a pause in the pipeline. And I was thinking while that was going on and while I was watching it on Democracy Now! The other morning, that I wish we would see at that someone mention that Leonard Peltier has been in prison since, 1973, stemming from the takeover of Wounded Knee by Native Americans who were demanding their rights. And again, in Palestine, we saw the same thing. We see the same thing, the encroachment, the continuing genocide, the continuing theft of people's land and destruction of their water and their ability to live. So there's Leonard Peltier. The only chance he has of getting out is the President of the United States. So we have a very difficult thing we have to do with political prisoners, because we have to pressure politicians who have very little real concern for human rights, and these are issues of human rights, to release people. In New York State, where we have I keep losing the count because we've lost some to death and some have gotten out, 5 political prisoners now that we are fighting for. And I work, and Fareed is here, I think, and Renee is here from Release Aging People in Prison. And the work that we do is about the connections between the political prisoners and other elders in prison in New York State. As of this year, there are 10,000 people over the age of 50. Last year, it was 9-something. Before that, it was lower. Every year, it goes up, because what has driven mass incarceration, unlike what people say that it's the war on drugs, it's actually been the imposition of longer and longer sentences for crimes of violence. So when we were first in prison, right, when it was right before the vast rise of mass incarceration, the sentences we faced looked really long, and we would say them to people in the jails we were in, and they would go, you faced that much time. By the time I got out, my sentence was short compared to the other women who were coming in who had done a hell of a lot less than I had done. So in New York, that's why we have this slogan, if the risk is low, let them go, which we have been marching around with. And we say that if we can get the state and the parole board in different places to start releasing the elders who have committed crimes of violence but who pose a very low risk of recidivism, then we can start to crack the mass incarceration system. The people within that who would make the most difference to release would be the political prisoners, because you take the cases that are hit by the legal system and the politics of the state, and they want to keep them in for both reasons. When those people get out, it's like something bursts open. So I don't know, free all political prisoners, that's about it for now. I know I have messages. Oh, wait, or I'll get murdered. Herman Bell particularly sends his love. Jalil Muntakim sends his love. David Gilbert sends his love. And I know that all the other political prisoners send their love. They just don't happen to have me on their phone list, so I don't know about it right now. Thank you.
Hank Jones, who also has been an activist his whole life and was a member of the San Francisco 8 case.
I was arrested in 1973. You know, as part of this, what is now understood to be the San Francisco 8 case. And I was taken to, this was in Georgia, arrested in a small town outside of Georgia for reclaiming some of the funds that they had robbed us of all those years. And they took me to Atlanta Federal Penitentiary. First, they took me to the Fulton County Jail. Stayed there until trial. Meanwhile, the FBI was filling the papers with stories about or accusations about the two of us. My crime partner was Ray Boudreaux, another member of the San Francisco 8. And they had all these stories about us being members of the BLA, and that we were cop killers, and that we had carried out a reign of terror that spanned 5 years here in the Bay Area. And all of these were accusations. I was on trial for bank robbery. See. But when I got to Atlanta Federal Penitentiary, I was kept in isolation. And I asked after a while to see the warden, asked him, why am I being kept out of the general population? And he just said, you know why, you know. And that's all he had to say about it. So I knew why. But I wanted him to tell me why, and he wouldn't do it. But anyway, I looked out on the yard, and there were like 300 Muslims out there chanting and running in the yard and doing martial arts and all of this stuff. And so I said, the thought came to me, you know, well, why don't you join the army? And so I joined the Nation of Islam. And back then, that gave me religious freedom. And then I could be released into the general population. And so that's what I did. And I was able then to move about as I had free access to things. And so they got me out of Atlanta Federal Penitentiary, and they were supposed to be taking me to Steilacoom, Washington, and McNeil Island Federal Penitentiary. And it took them about 90 days to do that. And in that 90 days, they dropped me off at every federal penitentiary between Atlanta and Washington. And the longest I was put in the hole, I was kept in isolation. In El Reno, Oklahoma, they had me in the hole there for 30 days until I stopped eating. And so I started pushing the food back through the hole, and I was in the cell 23 hours a day. They let me out an hour a day in a dog run for a little exercise. And but I made sure every time they passed the cell, I was doing exercise or doing some karate moves or something. And then when I stopped eating, they had told me they lost my paperwork. And when I stopped eating, they miraculously found my paperwork, and then they transferred me. And then they stuck me up in Lompoc in the top tier or the farthest corner of the institution. I was the only one up there. And I found a Bible in the cell, and there was a handwritten writ of habeas corpus. And I filled that out, and I gave it to the brother that came around to bring my food. And next thing I knew, I was out of there. But I finally got to McNeil Island, and I was met at the door by the Nation of Islam. They put me in the 8-man cell with Muslims, and I had access to, we could move about freely. And we ended up running the place, really. We could put down rebellion, conflicts between inmates, and we could do, we could speak freely because we had religious freedom. And, we talk about the devilish system and all of that, And we eventually got closed circuit television piped in from Chicago, from the Nation of Islam. And the inmates had access to that. And we brought Minister Farrakhan up there. We did a lot of stuff. We got away with a lot of stuff up there. And I never thought I was going to get out of prison because aside from the federal charges, I had some state charges pending. And if they acted upon those charges, I would have never seen the light of day again. But I had a great attorney. He came up there and miraculously made all that stuff go away. I don't know how he managed it, but I'm happy to say all he did. And what I want to say, though, is that was then. And what we got away with in that period of time is not possible anymore. I was fortunate in the sense that I was arrested during that time period. If I had done the same things today, I'd be in a hole somewhere in the bottom Pelican Bay, and with no hopes, like our comrades today, the political prisoners today. They only hope they have is that we can organize somehow and spread the word, get the word out somehow that what's happening to them amounts to human rights violations. And it was made even clearer to me once we went to Palestine. And I went to Palestine for the specific purpose of meeting their engaging their political prisoners and dealing and looking at their system. And what I saw was the same systematic approach to colonialism and repression there that we have here in this country. Only difference there is that it's overt and in your face. It's blatant. You see military walking around with automatic weapons. Here, and that's how it's controlled there. Here, it's more of a psychological control. It's mind control. And our youth here suffered when they took us out in the 60s and 70s, when they destroyed the People's Movement and they destroyed the Black Panther Party and the Black Liberation Army, stuff that created a vacuum in our the continuous struggle that we had in this country. And for a decade, for a generation, let's say, our generation, they worked to dumb our youth down, you see, because they took out the conscious people who are the political prisoners today. And that's the only reason they're being hidden away and kept from hitting the streets is because they are conscious and they are feared for that reason. Okay? And that's all the more reason that we need to get them out, you see. Like these brothers here who have just been recently released. Once we get out, we're not going to abandon our principles, especially if somebody that spent 30, 40, 50, almost 50 years in prison, and much of it in solitary confinement. You're not going to walk away from that. You come out here and you continue to struggle, see, and that's what they're afraid of. But those of us who are out here are going around and filling in that break that they created in the history of our struggle, going around elevating the consciousness of our youth. And most recently, you have Black Lives Matter. And I and some of us in this room had the opportunity last August to go, not this past August, August a year ago, to go to Cleveland for a convening of the movement for Black Lives, which has just released its platform in July. And part of that platform is dealing with the whole issue of political prisoners, mass incarceration, and just the broad spectrum of issues that negatively impact on our communities. And so they have learned from us, you know. And the reason I was invited was that they wanted some elders there. And I'm about one of the elders. I just made my 81st year. So I've been at this since the murder of Emmett Till in 1955. And so, you know, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not voluntarily, that's for sure. So, you know, I'm in it till we win it or, you know, it goes away, one or the other. So. And my comrades feel the same way. And these youth have picked this up, you know. And they are stepping up now. And what we saw in Cleveland was almost 2,000 young folks from all over the country and some from outside of the country who came together and had workshops for 3 days to gain knowledge and information and exchange this amongst themselves and learn from us, you know, the victories we had and the mistakes we made so that they don't repeat the same ones. And out of that has come this platform that Movement for Black Lives has published here. And I'm just very proud of them, you know. And I've been going around to these college, university campuses since 2007, since the San Francisco 8 case, speaking to young people and bringing that history, okay? And they're telling me my time's up. Yeah, you could just say it. But so I'm just gonna cut this short. But I'm here to say that the youth, the consciousness is there in the youth today, and they are stepping up. And I feel very good about the future of struggle in this country and the possibilities for liberation.
Yeah. Now, since we're here and we have managed to put political prisoners on the agenda of the FICPFM, on the platform of the National Council of Incarcerated and Formerly Incarcerated Women and Girls, and in numerous other places on the platform of All of Us or None and other organizations. What we need to do now, we've made an impact, right? People kind of know about political prisoners. What are the next steps? And Dr. Robert King and Albert Woodfox from the Angola State have been working steadily while they were locked up for over 40 years. And since they got out, which has been very recent, we're really lucky to have them with us. So they're going to talk some about the steps that we all can take that will actually make a difference in terms of our organizations, in terms of writing to people, and many other ways that we can express our support and try to put pressure on these elected officials and other people that have control over our people inside.
Robert.
Thank you, Linda, and thank you. Well, just about every one of you know who I am. I am the first freed member of the Angola 3, and we are talking about political prisoners. When I say freed member of the Angola 3, I meant this, that even though I was, free to roam and to do some things, and I had the freedom to advocate for my two comrades who remained in prison, Herman and Albert, at the time, I still saw myself as, sort of incarcerated. I saw myself as still being, not free until we all are free. That's a song that's out. We are not free until we all are free. In any event, and you like Linda pointed out, you have the definition of what a political prisoner is. You know what needs to be done, and we know what needs to be done. And this is our agenda. Albert and I, of course, I could tell you about my story. It'll take too long to tell you about my story. I don't have much time. Maybe we have a question and answer period, and I'll get to that later on. But we have a simple, not a simple agenda, but we have an agenda, and many people have been talking about it, throughout this conference in the last day or two, and perhaps we'll be talking about it further. We have to raise the barometer a little bit. We want to raise this to, and people have stated it already. It's more than implied. It's implied that it's a moral issue. It's not just a legal issue. It is a moral issue. We have to raise this to a moral level, because this is believe me, legality, and I keep saying it. I emphasize it over and over again, and I'll continue to do so. Legality in America it has been deified and made holy. In other words, nothing is compared. Nothing is compared to if it's legal, it's holy. And so what we have to do is bring it to a moral level, and this is what we're gonna do. I'm gonna say it mostly in my talk for later on for question and answer period, but I'll be brief with you. Alvin and I, we have the platform. We want to broaden this platform. We want to take it abroad. We want to do like we did to our case. Our case, Angola 3 case it was Angola 1, 2, 3, but Angola 3 case was like, it wasn't look, there were other cases around that was, the cases of this brother, Siko Adenga, his case was just as egregious as ours. We could go down the line speaking about people whose case was much, Jones, Hank, his case was just as egregious as ours. But collectively, our case made people around the world look at it because there was a violation they saw of human rights. And it's been implied here that under this American government, because of the past historical conduct of it to us, its subjects, the slaves from way, way, way back, there is a duty to to this system. It has the duty to rectify the wrongdoing. We have the language. The language has been written many times. People here have written the language. What we have to do is now bring this language, and we have to put this language in writing and bring it to the do a plenary with regards to this. We're doing this. We want to raise the level on the international level as well. We do have people, from Amnesty International. I didn't say Amnesty America. But we also have individual members of Amnesty America who will get on board with us. They got on board with our cases. And so I think I'll say this, we raise this to a moral level. And when I say we raise it to a moral level, and if you ask me the question about it, I could go into it maybe a little more. But if you ask me, we raise it to a moral level, I think we have to do like we did slavery. It wasn't until people saw slavery, saw it as being a moral issue. It was legal, to own slaves. It wasn't until people saw it as being morally reprehensible, that it was undone. And so we say prison is a form of slavery. Okay, a prison is a form of slavery, and I agree, because there are people in prison who were convicted of a crime that they hadn't committed. But the Constitution says if you were convicted of a crime, you have a right to be in prison. But we say this, morally, you don't have a right to be in prison. Maybe legally you have a right to be in prison, but morally you don't. So we want to raise the barometer. We want to bring it to a moral level. And I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
And last, it's really my honor and joy to be able to embrace and introduce Albert Woodfox, who just got out of prison after 44 years in solitary confinement. So.
start off by saying all power to the people.
All power to the people.
Fortunately for me, my comrades have covered just about everything that I possibly could say or want to say. Most of you know I have the distinction of surviving 43 years and 10 months of solitary confinement. For me, it was not so much surviving solitary confinement, but how I survived it, how my comrade Robert King and our deceased comrade Harmon Wallace, you know, we never lost dignity, we never lost pride, we never lost self-respect, and we never turned away from society. You know, the fight and struggles that many of you here have fought were always our fight. We always supported it. We always tried to carry ourselves in a way that would make impressions upon the men that were housed around us. The one thing that I used to worry about was that why nobody spoke for me, why nobody talked about the horrors of solitary confinement. Over 44 years, I've watched men go insane. I watched men take their lives. I've watched men beaten and murdered by security people. And I wish I could just, you know, tell you how. I think a large part of my survival had to do with the strength that I inherited from my mother, you know, who, fortunately, I had a chance to tell that she was my one true hero before she left, before the ancestors called her home. King has talked about the campaign that we are on now, you know. Laws can be changed. Laws are corrupt. The men who have the position as judges and district attorneys and police pretty much have a free will. This has to go beyond the legal battle. This is a moral battle. We have to develop a sense that to put a man or a woman or a child in some cases in a 9-by-6 cell for 23 hours a day, out of a day, is immoral. It's not just cruel and unusual, it's immoral, it's wrong by any standards. And until we can start a national and an international dialogue on the morality of locking people in solitary confinement, we're going to continue to have these horrors in our names, you know, because the district attorneys, the judges, the police, they always say they're doing this in the name of the people. Well, I never gave them permission to do that. So they're damn sure not doing it in my name. You know? And so, you know, if nothing else, I would, you know, someone asked me, you know, how I want people to remember me. I want people to remember me as a testament to the strength of the human spirit and determination. And it would also be nice if I could be remembered for being a part of the movement that ended solitary confinement. And thank you for allowing me to come before you.
I'm going to put on the spot here to give us a little update about one of the California political prisoners, Chip Fitzgerald.
Yeah.
He was a comrade along with Hugo Pinell, who was killed by the system, and largely because he was a signatory and an initiator of the agreement to end hostilities in the California prison system, which many of you may have heard about. It was a result and an integral part of the hunger strikes that have happened up in Pelican Bay and throughout the prison system. So if you could just tell us a little about Chip and what his current situation is. I would urge people to write to Chip. He's going to the parole board soon. There's been a lot of issues around his representation, and he could use our support.
Hey, before I do that, I gotta say something about the political prisoners in this room. So Chip's going to the parole board, and we needed an attorney. There are very good ones out there, and we got in touch with what we've been told was the best. And we needed money. And so my son taught me something about social money. You getting cold crowd of people. And we did a crowd of people thing to get some money. And people was, it was a different company, but people sending money. I mean, some people sending $5. Really special to Chip, because he understood that if you send in $5, it probably meant more to you than maybe some people who send in more money. But for me, my pride, those people you saw stand up as political prisoners, I mean, they sent a lot of money. And then called me and said, I need to send you some more money. 44 years, let me give you some money. So, thank you. I just needed that to be said, that this is not a people who say things like, check it out, this is what I'm saying. Listen to me. You see the footsteps. You heard her walk that walk, talk that talk? These are footsteps. So I got that out of the way. So Chip's been locked up for 47 years. We went in actually 2 months apart, and we both faced the same charges. I got lucky. Chip didn't get out. I did. But he's going to the board in February. He's scheduled. There's some issue with the attorney not wanting that to proceed, but we're going to proceed at this point. And there's some change in regulations, and he, according to regulations, should be given a parole date. Now, what that actually means, working out in practice, we don't know, but we do know if he don't go, he can't complain about not getting a parole date. So we're going to push forward at this point. And it's probably going to take some further litigation because it's not a lot of time left. I guess I'm a month older than Chip. You know, the clock don't run backwards. And I need you to understand that these folks that are locked up and these folks that you hear their names, they're people. And that we old people. But we were young people together. Chip was 19 and I was 19. We both faced capital murder. Not, you know, we was Panthers, and we had a duty to perform. So help us get all these people out. And you know, in these last years, I mean,
So I really urge you to go online, get this list, write to the comrades themselves, find out what you can do for their
Yeah, my name is Kalima. I just got out of prison last year after doing 46 years. And the brother spoke of Chip. I knew Chip myself. I know him well, and he was one of my teachers when I got off of death row. We were both on death row, but I didn't know him then. He was one of my teachers, as well as there's another man in the audience here, Imam Abu Qadir Alamin was on death row with us. And we were talking recently, and we were talking about, we were miracles. Both of us were on death row, got out of there alive. So, I believe that Chip is a legitimate political prisoner, and he deserves the support of everyone. We got another man in here, Brother Sundiata, who was a part of the San Quentin Six. And he was one of those that helped get me in trouble. But not when I say in trouble, he was the one that because they were torturing him, I had a chance to stand up and become a stronger man myself. That's all. He didn't have anything to do with me falling down. But anyway, these brothers deserve the support, all the support that they can get. All the political prisoners, all the old timers who actually are being kept in the prison right now illegally because Governor Brown has joined the other governors in constitutionally taking charge of people who were convicted before 1978, and they don't have the authority to do that. And they're keeping them in prison. They kept me, even after I got a date in 2012, the governor took my date from me. Kept me in. 2013, I had a chance to go back to the board, got another date, and he took it. 2014, I finally was approved. And had it not been for some of the support of the people sitting in this room right now, Prairie Fire Organization, Judith Murkison, her children, Scott Braley, he was in here taking photos a while ago. He was a cameraman. These people, there's Karen Shane, they stuck with me the whole 40 years, some of them, well, about 35 actually, and stuck with me the whole 35 years. And when I went to the board the last time, the board told me, said, Mr. Duran, we know that you've been doing well for the last 30 years. But without this strong support group, I don't care what you say or what you do, we would not let you out of here if it weren't for that support group. So this is what I mean by the brothers inside, the people inside. They deserve all the support that you can give. Thank you.
Okay, I see at least two questions. Evie, and then Sister, and then Alex, that's three.
I mean, I read Brother Malcolm's works, and before the ancestors called him home, you know, Malcolm said we have to forget our difference. We all have a common enemy.
Yes.
So that's where we start.
I'd just like to add that our common enemy is a criminal system.
Yeah.
We have to change our criminal system.
Can I just say this? I don't think it's departmentalizing that's the problem. I mean, I think we're not all gonna do everything. So it's almost have to be some kind of departmentalized. The thing we wanna do is support each other in that departmentalizing. If I'm standing up for political prisoners and you standing up for those who aging prisoners and someone else is standing up for mass incarceration, we all talking about let's free them prisoners.
Right.
So we're not at odds with each other. We just all pushing on our level, on our way for the same thing. And I think that's all right. Let's all support each other in that work, you know. That's the point. Let's support each other. But for us to do different work, that's good. That's what we need. People go to work, do something. You know, the problem ain't those who doing something; it's those who ain't doing nothing. Let's get people involved in this work. You know.
Just one word: support and inspire, because that's what I have felt at this conference. Inspired by the unity around all the different work that's going on.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Regina, and I'm from New York. Listening to you gentlemen, it brought tears to my eyes because as a child, my father was incarcerated. And growing up, my brothers got locked up. Then when I became a teenager, I got locked up. It was a cycle of a behavior that needed to be broke because I don't want my kids growing up sitting here saying I was locked up for 40 years.
That's right.
How do we break the cycle? Because you see, our young people are being killed, period, point blank. I have a son. That I broke the cycle of incarceration, addiction, and everything else. Right now, my son just graduated from Pace University. God. But how do we stop our young people from going to jail? What can we do as a people to stop our young people because they're going crazy? They're killing one another, they're killing the grandmothers, they're killing the babies. What could we do as a people to rescue our young brothers and sisters? I need help, folks, because they're killing in New York like crazy. They just killed my friend. They just killing young people. And I am sitting over here having a hard time because we smart. We as a people, we're creative. When I was locked up, they told me I was a barbarian. I was a savage. I couldn't go to school. I was uneducated. I was a nigger in Alabama. They told me that I'd never be educated. After coming home from jail, I didn't know what to do. I didn't even know how to cross the street. It was a little uncomfortable. But after being home 22 years, I got my degree. I set my kids straight. Now I need to know, with the rest of the boys and girls of color dying in our communities, what can we do to stop it? Thank you.
I don't know if I have the answer, sister, but I like to try to comment on that. I think if, you know, we are operating on many levels, and I know we are dealing on this particular day. I do my best to answer some of your questions. We are dealing, you know, we're on how to get. We're at a timetable here, and we want to focus on everything, but at the same time, we want to focus on political prisoners, and we want to get political prisoners out. We want to the remaining years that they have. We need to focus the majority of our time on that. With everything else, if we focus the time on that, I think we'll get more. The more people we get out, I think the more, what you said, it's the more ammunition we have to deal with this. And I think that we could operate and deal with this on a much broader basis. We can include everything into it. We can, of course, we can incorporate in all of the system, the systemic. You know, this, we have to look at this, that the people in this society, I want to really go back to political, a victim of political prisoners. If you're not a political prisoner in this country, you're a political victim because of the system itself. So I would like to want this young lady to know that, you know, being victimized by the system, you know, people who, for instance, like in Chicago, all the stuff that is going on in Chicago, there's a reason for it. It doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's because of mostly systemic. Don't get me wrong. You know, people have no one compel anyone to do anything or to kill or murder, whatever it is you want to call it. But when you're placed in a position, when you live in a neighborhood where you are disenfranchised, been disenfranchised for years and years and years, these are the results of it. We have to get to the root of the bigger problem. But we do have, getting to the root of the bigger problem, we have some smaller problems that we need to get to. And when I say smaller, I don't want to minimize because political prisoners isn't smaller. We want to look at the whole forest, but this little small section, we want to do, and if we get this done, I have no problem that you said we are small people. We'll come up with ways of dealing with the system. But we have to blame the system for some of these things. When the people live in a society where there's no jobs, no education, the school system are down. When they see where the federal government and the state government are corrupt, and the point is this, when they see life doesn't seem to matter because I get so tired of seeing, men in blue, policemen, in broad daylight, just murder people. And it's pure murder. So we have to come up with means to deal with all of these things. And we have to operate on many different levels, like Brother pointed out. We don't have to really compartmentalize anything, really, to a degree. We just have to be able to, if we are talented, we are multi-talented. Let's operate on multi-levels. And we could deal with these things. We got to. We have no choice. Nobody else will deal with them for us. We just have to dig in and keep doing what we're doing. If we keep throwing pebbles in a pond, I don't care what kind of ripple you trying to get or wave. If you keep throwing a pebble in a pond, you're going to get a ripple. And if you throw 1 million pebbles in a pond, you're going to get the biggest wave in the world.
Let me just say, I agree with everything the brother just said. But let me just add to that. Brother Hank said it earlier. It's the system. The system is the criminal. This is a system that is operating just like it's supposed to act. It's not broken. A lot of people talk about this system is broken. This system is not broken. This system is doing exactly what it's supposed to do to exactly who it's supposed to do it to. Let's be clear about that. Now, before we can change the system, we have to kind of get a better idea of who we are and what our responsibilities are and what our power are. We have the power to do a whole lot of things if we want to just do it. I would say to the sister, get with one of them organizations that's doing something, because there's a lot of organizations that's doing something out here. It's not just like nobody's doing anything, but it's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen overnight. It's just, we do have to get busy, though. I agree with you. We're going to have to do something. But the system is not broke. This system going to have to, somewhere along the line, we're going to have to talk about a change in this system. Now, revolution, I would say clearly people of color need, and if nothing else, a cultural revolution. That's clear. And now if we're going to change the system, we might need some other kind of revolution also. I'm not going to get into that right now. I'm still on parole. but we do clearly need some kind of cultural revolution. We have to start teaching our children who they are, where they come from, what their responsibility is. And we have to do that collectively, because some of our children don't have nobody to teach that to. Some of our children's fathers have already been murdered, locked up forever. The mothers might be locked up or on drugs or just never taught nothing herself. And so she's doing the best she can. We have to, as a community, come together and start creating vehicles, organizations that will reach out to our children and pull them in and teach them. That's just how it's going to have to happen.
And can I just add one more thing? And I'd like to add, you know, like we've already said, that it's the system, it's a structure, and we need to change it. But let's be clear, hope is on our side. It's the oppressor that doesn't have any hope. They're scared of our hope, our faith. It's not they that have it. We have that.
That's right.
That's our strength.
And I just like to say, look around today. What happened here today, and what, you know, look at, there must be about 500 people from all over the country. This is what we need to do. That's what's going to change this system. You see, this is the hope that our youth need to see. They need to be here to see this today. See, but that's what we need. We need to organize.
Yeah.
Right here, and I want to thank all of y'all. I really do. I really appreciate y'all. And on my back, I have a picture of my baby sister that died 3 years ago after being out of jail only 5 years from doing a 21-year sentence. Now her son is in Pelican Bay. He went to jail while she was in jail, and he's all caught up. At the age of 17, he's been in Pelican Bay since 2001. At the age of 17, he is still there. They're just now getting programs in there. But as far as my generation go, some of us dropped the ball.
Yes.
When they threw crack in our neighborhoods. Because my mother and them came up, they was Black Panthers. They told us to be proud. WIC program started because of the Black Panthers breakfast program. Now the government got a program just like that, but it's called WIC. We dropped the ball. My generation dropped the ball with these kids because that's how the Crips and the Bloods came and they went crazy. But they locking these kids up in solitary confinement at the age of 12 and 13, disciplining them from school, and they get out and they don't care nothing about nobody or nothing because they have been tortured.
Yes.
They have been tortured. Juvenile system, they don't have California Youth Authority no more, where they used to send them to YA from 18 to 25. They sent them to the penitentiary, Pelican Bay, at the age of 17. I have a nephew there now. So a lot of this has something to do with all of us dropping the ball, but we can keep pushing this ball forward because Black Lives Matter movement is not just about black people. It's a Black Lives Matter movement, and that includes everybody. Because when one of us is mistreated and done unjustly, injustice to one is an injustice to us all. You know, and that's.
My name is Alex Sanchez. I work for an organization in Los Angeles that's focusing on trying to help the youngsters not go into that path. You know, we're working on two extremes. We're working with youth who are recently arrivals from fleeing from the war in Central America, the violence in Central America that's been perpetrated by the United States policies down there that's forcing our people to flee into this country. And these kids are going to your communities. These immigrant kids are going into our neighborhoods where there's all this shit happening. And they're falling through the cracks. We're working hard in trying to prevent them from falling through the cracks. On the other end, we're also working with lifers that are immigrants who now are required to present two reentry plans. One locally where they're going to parole, and one from their country of origin that they haven't lived for 30 years. How the fuck they going to get that? And if they don't have that, they're not found suitable to be released. So we're working on that spectrum with our sister that's here from El Salvador that's helping us, with creating that reentry plan for them in El Salvador. And I'll tell you what, we want to expand that program because now we're getting Belizeans calling me, Cambodians writing to me, people from India, people that have been convicted to life that are immigrants and they have that immigration code. So we're talking about not only are these policies being exported and are funneling our people to have to flee our country, but also mass incarceration policies are also being implemented in Central America overall, where now they're calling it the Northern Triangle. And they're targeting it with policies such as the RICO. Most recently, they did a RICO case in El Salvador with all the wiretap calls and everything, looking at funds and going after people through those same tactics. And they arrested brothers and sisters that have been part of the mass incarceration movement over there to abolish it. Danny Romero had recently been, even by the United States, labeled part of an international criminal organization because he's an activist in El Salvador. Right. Now he's a political prisoner in El Salvador. You know, a brother that was in the gang that did about 9 years in solitary confinement in a super maximum security prison that's been modeled to Pelican Bay in the state of Zacatecolucas in El Salvador. You know what they call that prison? Zacatras. They named it Zacatras. So we're talking about this is an international issue. There's a transnational problem that we have. You know, and I would like to bring that spirit in here that we're talking about a transnational problem that has been created by mass incarceration in this country.
That's right.
And also the unjust policies that have been implemented in our communities that are now being mimicked by consultants from the United States into our countries. And not only Central America, when we talk about immigration, it's not only about Mexicans. I'm Salvadoran, I'm not Mexican. You know, but we have Belizeans, Cambodians, Haitians, we have, you know, people from all around the world in different colors that are going through this. And the problem is that sometimes this issue about I'm going to work on this topic and the other topic is all cool, but if we meet at one point, that makes it a cause of a bigger issue in which we all can get together and fight for. But when it comes to the immigration movement and the criminal justice movement, they don't see each other. The criminal justice movement has been led mostly by the African American movement, African American community, when the immigration justice movement or reform has been led by only Latinos, leaving those Africans, Cambodian, Asians, other ethnic groups' voice from being heard. You don't see that. So there is a word that's trying to bridge both movements. It's called crimmigration, where both the criminal justice and immigration intersect. And I've been a victim of that. I was also a political prisoner. I was also persecuted by LAPD in 2000 with immigration to get my ass deported because I was doing this work. I was doing the work that you're talking about that needs to get done, and they went after me for it. And they tried to deport me knowing that I was going to be executed in El Salvador as soon as I landed. But because the people knew me, they stopped me from being executed. I want political asylum. But that didn't stop them. In 2009, they got me caught up in a RICO case in which they were trying to give me life. Right? But once again, the people came out, you know, and I ended up beating that shit. You know, and the charges got dropped. But hey, at that moment, and seeing you all here and all the time you guys done for what you believed in, shit, man. Not too long ago, I was asked, are you willing to sacrifice your life? I said, you know what, man? Really? You know, am I willing to go to prison for 46 years right now and leave my kids behind? I think that we can't just let it out for one people. You can't just throw the ball at one person. We all need to fucking stand up and do it. You can't just let somebody go to prison. You know, I do not want to go to prison no more. I do not want to. I don't want to be locked up and be called a political prisoner. Yeah, I was in there. What was I doing in there? Once you're an activist, man, you shit. You're in the fucking belly of the fucking beast. And that's where you need to be. That's where you do your work. Shit, I was getting people off. You know, I was doing my work and then I became a jailhouse lawyer without knowing anything. People said, oh, you need a book? I said, yeah, I'll give you this 9th Circuit book. It cost about $200. People will send it to me, and all of a sudden I had a law library. Then nobody else had access to the library that they had in the feds. So, you know what I'm saying is, and I guess there's the question, how can we do this? And somebody told me a story that they asked the child, would you like to one day grow up and help people? And the child said, no. Said, why? Because they all get killed. Martin Luther King got killed. Malcolm X got killed. You know, Hugo Chavez got poisoned. You know, everybody that's fought for our people have been executed. If this child understands that, how the hell are we going to do it? How are we going to change that? How are we going to be able to step up to the plate and be willing to sacrifice ourselves like you all did? You know, and right now, I don't know if I got the balls to do it anymore. You know, because I know what I'm facing with. I know what I was facing. You all went through it already. But shit, I'm like, oh man. You know, I just rattling up.
Which is that many of you probably are familiar with the term returning citizen, right? All of us or none rejects that term in terms of our movement of people that have been in prison because it excludes people from other countries who are not citizens. So I think that that's a first step in terms of really building our unity and recognizing that those borders are artificial. We're human beings and we need transnational, international movement to really fight this system.
I want to say just one thing quickly. We need internationalism. When we talked before about COINTELPRO being an attack on organizations and people, it was also an attack on an ideology. And part of that ideology was internationalist. That's why I was reminding everyone that the Attica brothers had a demand transfer to a non-imperialist country. And one of the things that we've done for the political prisoners at different points is try to see what countries would accept if we could get a prisoner exchange. But that's not more the point. More the point is why do Hank and I talk about Palestine? Because the United States cannot be, just like the prison system can never be abolished without abolishing the nature of the US system now, because it's part of it. It's not a separate thing. It's their arm into the community. We can never fight the US government if we forget that it does not only exist within these borders and that there are oppressed nations within these borders, but there are nations around the world that are also oppressed by the United States. So I think this is really important. I know I've been concerned about how we try to bring together the movement for immigration and the movement against mass incarceration. And I think we're trying to work with different groups, but I think we need more of a global argument, a global phrase, a global way of getting it across, you know, quickly, and having slogans, having practice that reflects that.
Wait, Margaret was next, I'm sorry. Margaret, and then you.
Yeah, I just want to say that, especially to the sister and others, that I'm really honored to be in the room with the people in front of us, because all of us are standing on their shoulders. And I think we have to remember that. And when we ask the question about what should we be doing, they've been doing it, and a lot of us, others of us, are doing it. And the young people that Hank mentioned in Cleveland, nearly 2,000 young people from Black Lives Matter are doing it. And the Sioux people at Standing Rock are holding it down, and they're also doing it, so let's not forget that. That's right. And the global issue, you know, part of a global network, we've been quietly working, and when the prisoner hunger strike happened, we called a global action called Hunger for Justice, so we were able to contact our Dalit sisters in the countryside in India, our sisters in London, the domestic workers in Peru, in Venezuela and Haiti and others. So there are some of us that are really doing this work. Might not be loud, it might be quiet, but I can tell you it's hard work, and we're inspired by them because they are the long distance runners, and we know that it's gonna be a long distance runner to defeat this monster that we are up against. But I just want to say that because I want to honor you folks. And I want to honor the women in particular. We should, because we forget about the women all too often. But I also promised Chandra Delaney the mother of one of the Dallas Six, that I would just lift them up today, these prisoners in Pennsylvania who saw and witnessed torture inside the prison and did nonviolent protests by covering their cells with sheets, and the guards came in and beat the hell out of them and charged them with rioting. And now they're going after Carrington and they're trying to lock them up further because they're bringing out the torture that's inside the prison. And I also want to lift up the Reverend Edward Pinckney out of Benton Harbor, Michigan, a prisoner inside today because he was opposing racism and the theft of the environment in Benton Harbor, a black town in Michigan where they still burn crosses and all that mess. He's a reverend. And part of why they put him in prison is the judge said he quoted the Bible and he felt threatened by that quote, and Reverend Pinckney is up in prison right now for a crime he did not commit. This is a brother, Reverend Edward Pinckney. I just want to lift him up. All righty. So I just want to make sure that those two names are mentioned, but the question I have for you all, because many of us, all of the sisters that I mentioned and brothers in our global network, we were looking for the leadership coming from behind prison walls. Right. Mm-hmm. Because that's where leadership is coming from. Because a lot of the political prisoners, other prisoners in there that are organizing, and the FIPs, as we now say internationally, that come out, what do you got to lose? Like Hank said, y'all are continuing that. And we were very interested in the thing to end hostilities, the agreement to end hostilities, because they're, in Pelican Bay, they're being punished now. Yes, they are. Lift up Canal, who was killed because of that agreement to end hostilities. I think we have to think about that, because one of the things the hunger strikers asked us, they asked us a few things, not a lot, I think there were 3. And one of them is that we in our communities work to end these racial hostilities, and we get confused because we mix up separatism and autonomy, not understanding we can have autonomy and we can also do the work of coming together. And also the women in detention in Berks, Pennsylvania, the mothers who are now on hunger strike. You see, so all of this is coming together right now. What did you think the impact of that hunger strike? We know they were inspired by y'all in Angola, the great California prisoner hunger strike, and I understand today there's a call for a federal work stoppage by prisoners to start today. And I wondered if any of you wanted to comment on that. Thank you.
So this is going to have to be the last question because we have to go to that other clinic.
I think
Go.
I think Margaret has covered just about all of it.
How you doing? I'm the founder of Black Lives Matter Long Beach. I just want to ask a question. I was just recently arrested for a protest in Long Beach about 2 weeks ago. And I want to see how to be preventative for our brothers and sisters on the line when we're fighting for this fight. We, with Cal Gang database, they is now labeling people on the street as gang members. They're calling them street terrorists. We know in the media they're calling activists terrorists. How can we be preventative from that word terrorist and be more proactive to change the system that's criminalizing us? I just want to know how to do that so I can take notes so I can go back on the streets. That's it.
The attempts always is to criminalize us. Yeah, that's how it is. You know, that's what they did with the Black Panther Party, right? We were criminals, we was terrorists, and that's what COINTELPRO is about. That's what we were talking about, COINTELPRO. Criminalize us, activists, you know, so that's why I kept saying at the beginning when I was talking about factoring to your thinking the history of America, where you live in, who we are, who you are in particular, and don't let them control and dictate the dialogue. I remember one of my co-defendants in the San Francisco, Richard Brown, as soon as they called us criminals, he was appalled. He said he was outraged, and he was right. How could you call me a criminal? We didn't say we was criminal. We didn't start out. We said we for the people. We are the people. And we will continue to struggle and fight for the people. And we will suffer for this. And we take it upon ourselves to do it willingly.
That's right.